Prosecution versus Adrian Dominic Wilkerson.
It begins, officers spoke with witnesses at the scene. Then a few sentences over, several witnesses stated that Bonilla punched the suspect and physical altercation occurred. However, other witnesses advised the suspect was.
This case isn't as simple as it first sounds, and that's exactly what makes it so intense. What started as a physical altercation quickly turns into a legal battle over one key question: who was the real aggressor? On one side, you have witnesses claiming the defendant was attacked first. On the other, statements suggesting he escalated the situation. And in court, those small differences in testimony can completely change the outcome. Because here's the reality: self-defense laws don't just depend on what happened, but who started it, how far it went, and whether the response was justified. So, as you watch this unfold, ask yourself, if you were in that situation, would you have walked away or reacted the same way?
The aggressor prior to the physical altercation. Your Honor, there were witness statements in this regard. However, that is not what occurred in this matter. I think it's undisputed that my client was not the initial aggressor in this.
Okay, and so is on behalf of the people?
Your Honor, I believe defense counsel's statement indicates that there actually were witnesses that advised that the suspect was the aggressor prior to the physical altercation. If the court would like, it could indicate that other witnesses disagreed. That could be a compromise, but I don't believe that taking out that sentence would be accurate. The police had received from witnesses from the scene.
How about I say other witnesses and defendant disagree?
That's fine, Your Honor.
Your Honor, my name is Magdalena Bonilla. I am the wife of Christopher Bonilla. I am here because his life was taken from us. My husband and I shared decades together. He came into my life when my daughter was just 2 years old and raised her as his own. Today, she is 32 years old and is the only father she ever knew. This case is not just a charge or a file number. A human life was lost. Our family will live with that loss for the rest of our lives. Since my husband's death, nothing has returned to normal. Ordinary days are no longer ordinary. Nothing this court does today will bring my husband back, but the sentence imposed today will speak for him in a way he no longer can. I am asking this court to make sure that his voice is clearly heard. Thank you for allowing me to speak, Your Honor.
Ma'am, you clearly spoke for him. He's standing with you. I know he's proud of you.
Thank you.
I thank you for your strength and being the voice, not just for him, but we have far too many victims. I have far too many families broken by gunshot. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate you, Your Honor.
My name is Maricela Bonilla, and I am the daughter of Christopher Bonilla. I am not here today only to speak in grief. I am here today to speak in truth. And the truth is, my father was not anyone's to take. The truth about Christopher is that he was a kind man. If you have crossed his path in everyday life, he would have treated you with respect. In a world that was often turned its back on people, my dad showed compassion. The truth about me is that when I heard the news, I didn't cry at first. I listened for him. I made a promise that I would fight for him, that I would show up no matter how hard it was. I promised that I would never let him feel alone. My family and I were always his strength. We were the ones who stood beside him when life became heavy. This crime did not just take my dad's life, it changed every part of mine. The person Christopher was, his kindness, his presence, his role in our family can never be replaced. Thank you, Your Honor. I ask that you consider the depth of the harm caused, not only to my dad, but to everyone who loved him and depended on him. Christopher Bonilla mattered, his life mattered, and the impact of his loss will stay with us forever. Thank you for allowing me to speak today.
My name is Kristen Bonilla, and I am here to speak on behalf of my family and myself about the loss of my father, who was shot and killed in February of last year. My dad was not just another person whose life was taken. He was our everything. He was a dad, a friend, a brother, a cousin, an uncle, a son, a husband, and most importantly, a grandfather. That type of grandfather was something he was truly the best at. It brought out a side of him that not everyone got to see. To his grandchildren, he was gentle, playful, patient, and full of unconditional love. He adored them, and they adored him right back. To someone who didn't know him, My dad might have looked intimidating at first glance, but he was a gentle teddy bear. He had the biggest heart. He was the kind of man who would be there for anyone, even a stranger. There was a saying that he'll give you the shirt off his back, and that was generally who my dad was. Our family will carry this grief for the rest of our lives, and the love he gave us will stay with us forever. Thank you for allowing me to speak for my father.
Although now you may cry while you're telling the story, you'll find joy and peace in his memory and sharing all that greatness that he brought into your life and into our community. And I'm so very sorry for the loss you all have suffered and our community has suffered. We need good people. We need them to be here and not be taken down by gunfire.
Exactly.
The defendant has a long history. It's a long, violent history, as Your Honor has seen in the PSI. Those are the words of a person who fancies himself as a victim of his circumstances. The defendant filed a sentencing memorandum in this case that did nothing but sully the character of the victim in this matter. But let's talk about the defendant. The defendant made a choice on February 16th, 2025, when he left his house with a gun he was not supposed to have because he was a felon, put that gun in his waistband, walked into a strip club, and decided to drink the night away. What good is going to happen or come of drinking the night away when a felon has a gun tucked away in his waistband? As everyone knows,
This is the turning point of the entire case, and the prosecution knows it. That phrase right there, bringing a gun to a fistfight, carries massive legal weight, because even if the defendant was attacked first, introducing a firearm, especially as a convicted felon, completely shifts the narrative. In the eyes of the law, force must be proportional. A fistfight is one level, a gun is another. And once that line is crossed, self-defense becomes much harder to prove. The prosecution is building a story of choice, not panic. Choice to carry illegally, choice to drink, and ultimately choice to pull the trigger. But here's the real question. Does being attacked justify deadly force in that moment? Or did this cross into something far more serious?
emotions get high. You may see someone that you may have a beef with, and that's exactly what happened. And what he did was bring a gun to a fist fight. Instead of walking away, instead of learning what he learned in prison when he did his prison term for witness intimidation on a case he wasn't even involved in, for a murder where he beat up a witness from a first-degree murder case that he had nothing to do with. He pulled the gun out in a fist fight, and he shot Christopher Bonilla in the stomach. And instead of standing there and providing any type of assistance or calling the police or doing anything that he could, like an actual victim would have done, he picked up his gun that shot what seems to be rifle rounds, and he walked calmly out of the building, stumping the pistol back into his waistband, got into a car and left the scene. And where, by chance, is that gun? Where has that gun ever gone? It's never been found. He never called the police. He never did anything to help the situation. That is not how a victim acts. Yet, this person who wants to fancy himself as a victim and sully the reputation of Christopher Bonilla in a sentencing memorandum doesn't want to make a statement on his own behalf. Very telling, Your Honor. We have a family that has lost their patriarch, all because of what? Because of a decision that Adrian Wilkerson, Dirty is what his name is, that's how everybody knows him, Dirty, made a decision that day. He made a decision to put a pistol in his waistband when he wasn't allowed to. So I would ask that Your Honor take those statements from the victim's family into account when you're forming your sentence in this case, because though this is a plea to a manslaughter and a felony firearm, I think those are huge issues that we have here, and I think that the defendant has to understand that that's not how normal people operate in our community. And I would ask that Your Honor follow the guidelines and sentence the defendant to 144 months to 360 months on count 7 and consecutive to the 24 months in count 6.
Your Honor, there's no denying that we're faced with a difficult decision in this matter and a difficult set of circumstances. We have a family that lost a loved one that they'll never be able to get back. And my client is going to be spending a significant amount of time in prison as a result of his actions. Now, the probation department and the prosecution has made a recommendation for 144 months in this matter for the manslaughter charge. We respectfully disagree with that recommendation, as we do feel that that ignores the facts of the case and the history and characteristics of my client as well, Your Honor. Now, I did file a sentencing memorandum and detailed a lot of what occurred in this matter, and I think that it's undisputed as to what happened during this incident, Your Honor. My client is at a bar or a nightclub, and while there, he's sucker punched. And then he's attacked by multiple people from multiple angles. There was no one coming to his defense. Security at the club was not coming to break this fight up. And yes, my client is a felon, and he was wrong, and he had a firearm. It was illegal for him to do that. And in the midst of this attack, he shot and killed Christopher Bonilla, Your Honor. It's on video. We can't run from those facts. We can't hide from it. That is what happened on this night. But I think it's important because when my client left from home, he never in his mind envisioned what was going to be happening this night. He never thought that he'd be using his firearm. He never thought that he would be attacked and sucker punched in the club. And he didn't know that there was someone who was holding a vendetta against him. Your Honor, for the last several years, my client has been living his life the right way. He removed himself from negative influences and the street lifestyle. Mr. Wilkerson he successfully did what we want all prior offenders to do. He reformed. And
How did he reform, counsel, when he violated the law where he couldn't have a weapon? Let's start from there. I understand what you're doing, and it is your job, and you're doing it very well, but let's be very clear. His reformation included violating the law by carrying a weapon into a bar.
And for that, Your Honor, he is wrong. He had a firearm. He wasn't supposed to have one. But when we focus on the other aspects of his life, this is someone who had no education, who took it upon himself to go out and earn a general education degree. This is someone who had no skills or training, took it upon himself to earn a commercial driver's license. He was working, he was doing everything the right way. And in fact, my client had confided in me that he hadn't been out to a nightclub since he was released from prison. This was the first night that he had went out. All that he did was focused on his family and his work. He worked 2 jobs around the clock, driving a truck up and down the state of Michigan and throughout various parts of the country. He worked on the weekends here at another job in the Lansing community. He was doing everything that he could, and his family was proud of him because he did a complete 180 with his life, Your Honor. Now, the prosecution had made some arguments about my client declining to provide a statement to the probation department. My client has an absolute right to remain silent, and he declined to make a statement to the probation department on the advice of counsel. He should not be penalized for that. He came into court and he made a factual basis about what occurred that night, Your Honor. I think in light of all the circumstances and everything that did occur on this night, my client's history and characteristics, as well as the history and characteristics of the victim in this matter, Your Honor, we would be asking the court for a sentence of 60 months for the manslaughter.
I'd like to begin by expressing how truly sorry I am for what happened last February. I know that looking at my criminal history is easy to make an assumption of who I am. And Your Honor, I'm disappointed in myself. I'm back in a position I promised myself and my mother that I would never be in again. My last criminal offense was over 10 years ago. I changed everything about who I am and who I was. I earned my GED, I earned a CDL, I was going through therapy, self-admitted. For once, everything in my life was going great. Then in February of last year, I went out with the intentions to just unwind, but I never envisioned that I would be attacked. I'm so far removed from that life that the thought of being sucker punched and then being jumped just wasn't even in the realm of reality for me. I regret that a life was lost, and for that I am sorry. one day going to have to answer to God for. Regardless of how this incident unfolded, who was drunk, and who was the aggressor, I am sorry for the role I played in it. And I pray that the family can one day find it in their hearts to forgive me. And I ask that the court takes everything from this case into consideration. I'm asking for leniency, mercy.
I have no leniency and no mercy to give you, because what I see is an escalation. What I see is someone who has said, I've done all of these great things, and so I want you to give me credit for violating the law, carrying a gun into a bar and firing twice into a human who dies. Could have fired into the ceiling. That would have scared everybody. That would have been a cry for help, if that's what you needed. But taking a gun to a fist fight doesn't work. You were a felon, you knew you couldn't have a weapon. You chose to drink. You had control of your life, how much you drank, and whether or not you took an unlawful gun with you. So all of these great things that you did and that everybody's so proud of gets erased by carrying a weapon concealed unlawfully on your person in a bar where you drink. So your decision-making is clouded by the alcohol. But it was already clouded having no alcohol when you put that unlawful weapon into your waistband without the proper license or authority, and then you use it on a human being, a valuable human being. Now, maybe you didn't give a crap about him, but the community does, and his family certainly does. They will be forever without him. He will not share birthdays, holidays, graduations. There are no more hugs. There are no more celebrations with him. His family has to keep him alive by the memories he left behind, by the footprint he left behind. Your sorry doesn't cut it for me. You do not just have one or two crimes. You have, what, 7 felonies? And what, another 7, 6 or 7, let's see, 6 felonies prior, now it's 7, and 5 prior misdemeanor. What haven't you learned those other 13 times you were before a judge? If anybody speaks out anymore, the officer will take you into custody. It is contempt. 93 days jail and or $7,500 is contempt. I don't care about the money, but you'll have 93 days in our hotel in Mason. So I expect a quiet courtroom. I don't know where your counseling went wrong. I don't know where all these good deeds went wrong, but they didn't go far enough. You need some significant time behind bars so that when you are out, the rest of us can be assured that maybe you learned your lesson and you can keep us all safe. You'll be behind bars, but you can still see your family and they can send you pictures and they can come visit you. Unlike the man who was loved that you took down. As to count 1, homicide, manslaughter, you are sentenced to 171 months to 360 months. 0 credit days. You will pay a private assessment in the amount of $130 and a $68 state cost. As to count 2, weapons, felony, firearms, you will serve 24 months with credit for 402 days that you've already served. That time will be served consecutive with and preceding count 1, which technically is count 6. And count 7. I think we need to change that on the cover page. I believe that this punishment, given the circumstances, the escalation, and the thoughtlessness that went into bringing a gun, an illegal gun, into a bar, being drunk, and firing it against a punch or 2 or 3. I believe this punishment is sufficient and proportional. It speaks to the necessary continued rehabilitation of defendant Hopefully it deters others and protects society. There are far too many illegal weapons and people who decide they want to be all powerful and excuse their actions away by carrying a gun. You have 42 days to appeal and to request appellate counsel. Please give him his appellate rights. The form should be right in front of you, sir.
And just like that, the court delivers its final decision, bringing an emotional and complex case to a close. This wasn't just about a single moment of violence. It was about a chain of decisions. The judge made it clear. Carrying an illegal weapon, especially as a felon, combined with alcohol and escalation, erased any claim to justification in the eyes of the court. The sentence reflects not only punishment, but a message about accountability, consequences, and the value of human life. Meanwhile, the victim's family is left carrying a loss that no sentence can ever truly fix. Now, I want to hear from you. Do you think the sentence was fair or too harsh? Should the circumstances have mattered more? If you found this case as shocking as we did, make sure to hit that like button, share your thoughts in the comments. Hey, and don't forget to subscribe for more jaw-dropping courtroom breakdowns.
Thank you. That is all for this record. Thank you.